in a minute and get a cup of coffee.
Pretty good timing. Yeah, we'll let you get up and get coffee anytime, but let's see. So let's see. This is a meeting, just as a quick introduction. This is all our big club fans in America, Europe, North and South Pole, and entire Far East and Middle East listening to us, and also our fans from Saudi Arabia that are listening to this with synchronous translation to Arabic that David is doing from Hebrew. So all our big audience today is hold on, let me just see to make sure. Today is the 7th of Adar, the month of happiness. We're supposed to have joy at Adar, unbounded, unrestrained joy. It is 28th of February, March 1st is tomorrow. It's not 29 days in this month, right? 28.
No, it's 28. This is the last day. This is the last day of the month.
The February 2032 or 5813 on our calendar. And every recording, every week we post, we kick it off with a 14-minute special. Sometimes it's on religion, sometimes it's on fishing, sometimes it's on health, sometimes on almost say the code word for the, how to spell in reverse, suriv, on a suriv, right? If you spell another way, so we don't get banned from any, if you listen in reverse to my word, okay? I'm sure a modern algorithm can identify even that. They're listening to our speech like this. John Lennon's recording, Ring of Stars. You left us, Ringo, or something like that. If they played the recording in the word. So today we don't have the 14-minute special. Today just an open format. Just before we started, I just want to make sure the next Tuesday, David is trying to get his friend, the Karaite rabbi, to come and join us. Now, the next was a presentation to tell us who are the Karaites, with which flame and coals are we supposed to burn them, and how they're going to burn us. So as we discuss the mutual modes of punishment, the thing to check is next Tuesday, David pointed to me, is actually Purim. So at 8 o'clock Purim, is that a good day for us to do it, or should we skip for the following Tuesday? Usually Purim celebrations during the day, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, but I don't know, sometimes families. What do you think, guys?
Well, first of all, I will have to ask the former chief rabbi of the Karaite community in Israel if he's available. Maybe he's I don't know. Maybe he's going to be at some Purim event in another city, or I don't know. Maybe he's be at work, or I don't know.
He might be plastered.
He might be what?
Plastered. He might be too drunk to do anything.
That's right, but 8 o'clock.
Well, I think one of the issues is the Sudat Purim might run over a little bit. That's all.
I actually still don't know about these. Although I have this week, I can officially say that officially say that I have. I think I've completed my move to Karaite Judaism, and I started praying in the Karaite synagogue. And so I'm now like almost, I'm a Karaite.
Well, you look the same to us. You didn't change at all.
Yes, yeah. I know. I still look the same, but something I feel a difference right here in the back of my neck. Something
as long as it's not in the back of your behind, you're fine.
Let's see what happens.
And as long as it's not a little red laser point dot.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yes. Ah! I still don't know exactly about whether Karaites get drunk on Purim, and how do they express the happiness. I will see next week when I go to the synagogue to read the Megillat Esther.
You have to do it, David, because
we'll see what happens.
You have to do it because otherwise on Tuesday you'll have a big dilemma to drink or not to drink. That is a question.
That is the question, exactly. So I'll talk to him and see if he's available for next week, and if not, then I'll
That'll be good. But in general, guys, what like Ruben just said that my run over from Sudan, my run over. In general, it's a Tuesday overall, no matter what. Is it okay for us, guys, or not? I don't know. I will be
But
okay.
you should do the Seudah, but according to, at least according to what I know in Orthodox Judaism, the Seudah, you should do it rather something in the morning, like I think at 11 or
Well,
10
like we
o'clock
have
in
a
the morning.
party in Ramban. You like that, David, because Karaites also like Ramban. So it's your favorite, So in the Rambam synagogue, I go to American synagogue, Rambam, they have a Purim party at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It probably will be done by 5. And I usually don't drink that much. I still can tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai by the time I live. I'm usually the Haman, and my wife is Mordechai or Esther. So that's kind of usually what happens. So I still will be able to do 8 o'clock presentation, but I know you guys, maybe your habit is just that they have to carry out from the party. I don't know.
We'll just have to see what happens. What about you, Ruben, and Jonathan? Where are you going to be next week?
I'll to be,
Reuven?
yeah, I'll be at a Purim Suda. It's probably gonna start in the afternoon. I don't know when.
No,
it's
I'm
gonna
talking about
end.
8 o'clock in the evening.
Well, don't think Chabad. Yeah, they start in the afternoon and they go for 2 days.
Yeah.
So, and you, Jonathan?
I stopped drinking about 3-4 years ago, so I'm easy. I'm available for Tuesday.
In that the case, let's do this. We're gonna keep it at 8 o'clock on Tuesday. If for some reason somebody can show up, not show up. And for some reason I don't show up, guys. I also asked you last time, you should get, maybe Jonathan, you can do a backup Zoom in case. And by the way, everybody mentioned that video that you have formed. It just, David told me, David is professional movie maker. He's and he said this was just something to, and I also I like your rendition of our talk last time. Was just, this is like a, I mean, I love it. I love it. So maybe you can do that, make this.
I do get paid for doing that, for medical Zoom medical conferences that are Zoom and stuff. So yeah, I've done it.
Oh, really?
All right. So he gets paid for the room, and you got to send him 50 shekels.
I'm
making money.
I'm actually thinking of starting my own YouTube, my own podcast. So I'll talk to you, Jonathan.
I'm not on that side of it. I'm on
You're
the
what?
actual. I'm on the post-production editing. I'm
talking just about the the graphics,
Oh, that's easy. Yeah.
just to make a logo for the podcast.
Yep. I'm not a graphic artist. That will cost you money.
Ah,
I don't know.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
graphics you did last time was great.
That is not exactly graphics. That's just kidding around.
These doctors are perfectionists, David. The doctors are always like that,
What can I say? What can I say?
Modesty is my middle name, and Jonathan,
So
you're just.
what are
I'm
we
the
going to
most
talk about today?
modest person I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was me. As I like to quote,
I'm very modest, and I'm proud of my modesty.
Yes.
well, I have two. I have an issue with decisiveness and modesty. As far as decisiveness, I used to be undecisive, and now I'm not sure anymore. And as far as the modesty, I always like to quote myself as saying that I said it better by saying, "This is me talking." You got all that,
You
guys?
always agree, and you always agree with yourself.
I agree with you. Yeah, I usually, that's actually a problem. I have unstopped debate with I never agree with myself. I'm not sure.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about today?
Today, okay.
Well, a
What
friend
are
of
we
mine
going
from
to
the
talk about?
States sent me a message. He wants to know what's going on with the Israeli judiciary reform, because all the leftist newspapers he reads say that Netanyahu is like Trump and it's all terrible. That's in other words, war
I
on
like to
democracy.
hear that. That's great. David, you're an expert in judicial system in Israel. What do you think?
No, I'm the number one expert. So according to what I see on on the news and on my Twitter and stuff. Actually, nothing happens except the left basically, being crybabies, and they continue to attack Netanyahu at the Knesset, and at the same time, in the Knesset at the Knesset's Constitutional Committee, the Legal and Constitution Committee, they're pushing forward the legislation. So what happened is that last week a couple of laws, a couple of important laws were voted at the Knesset and were passed at the first vote. So there's three votes, right? So after the first one, if the first vote is voted against, majority is against, then this is it. The law dies. But if it's voted for, it goes back to the committee for some more, talking and refining the last version, hearing all the opinions before the second and third vote. And the second and third vote are done at the same time. So it's on the same session. So what we have now is they're still talking about it, still refining, fine-tuning, refining, hearing different opinions before they present the last and final version of the law to be voted on the second and third votes, and which will be done on the same session. So this is where we are. The legislation is still going, and the left are still afraid, and they're crying, and they behave like crybabies, and they at some points they lose control. Yesterday, you probably saw this on the news. They have yesterday or the day before, they started, walking down the road of Ayalon. They went through the barricades. They broke the police barricade or the border, right? Barricade or border? What is the right word?
Barricade.
Barricade, right? So they broke the barricade and moved forward, and basically they sealed the road. They didn't let the cars go, and yeah, they're hysterical, completely hysterical. It's completely hysterical. But I feel that it's less hysterical than it was last week and before that and before that and before that. So they're I think they're starting to understand that it doesn't really matter what they do. There's a majority in the Knesset for the laws to pass. So
Curious if
yeah,
if the Supreme Court can find any law unreasonable, can they find the law changing that law unreasonable and cancel it?
No.
Well,
They used to,
this is a
right?
tricky. What?
They used to do that illegally, but now I guess after the law they shouldn't be able to.
Well, now, yeah, what they're saying is that if, let's say, if the laws are passed, the reform is passed, everything is done from the perspective of the Knesset, and someone goes to the court and says, we appeal against the law, whether it's members of the opposition or some kind of an NGO, because according to Aaron Barak, anyone can appeal about anything to the Supreme Court. I can appeal, as David, the Karaite from Beersheba, I can appeal if I don't like something. So so let's say someone appeals. There's probably going to be like a zillion appeals, and they say that if the court cancels the new laws, there's going to be a constitutional crisis, which can lead to legally lead to anarchy, because the Supreme Court is basically canceling laws that are made about itself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be considered, a conflict of interest.
Yeah, a conflict of interest, but they talk about a constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
And everybody this is a scenario actually everybody's afraid of. I think except for the people who push forward the legislation, like
Half a country, more than half.
Netanyahu, Yariv Levin, and Simcha Rotman. I guess they're not really afraid, but I think everybody else is definitely the left. And I think that if there is a constitutional crisis, I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know what's going to happen on the streets. But it just might be not nice, as far as Jews go, because we're not French. I don't think it's going to be a guillotine, working 24 hours a day.
I will add to this, it's interesting, Ruben, maybe you can tell your guy in America to listen after, maybe Jonathan will help us edit this, we'll talk about it in a minute, this video, and you can send to him, but also I will resend you the link for our couple of weeks ago discussion where David very thoroughly went through, I made this diagram on a napkin, remember that David told me, and then I renditioned it on a little bit more, and I showed exactly the structure of government, all that, between that session,
napkin.
And between that session and this session, it might be actually helpful for your friend in America to know. But I would also mention something else. David just had a Freudian slip a little bit. He, maybe because of a language situation, he didn't know whether it's a barricade or border. And, people with Jonathan and Ruben who are, David knows English like 99%. I know approximately 70%. And the Ruben and the Jonathan know like 105%. So maybe they can correct my linguistic correction here. They really meant to go not to the barricade, but to the border. And there's a border between Israel and Samaria and Judea. It's a border between us and so-called Palestinians. Jonathan likes to put them in quotes. If they did go to the border patrol should open the gate and let them pass. And they can keep going there until they get to Jenin. And once they get to Jenin, they have all the freedom in the world. They can protest, they can make any laws. That's the border they actually were looking for, but somehow they missed it, the long highway instead of the border to Jenin.
There's also a border between Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv and the rest of Israel from up north and south. As someone from Beersheba, I always have to, to stamp my passport when I enter Tel Aviv. They said some people in Tel Aviv never even heard of Beersheba. What is that? Is that a different country? What is it? Where are you from?
Is it Eastern Beersheba or the Western Beersheba? Is it next to Berlin?
And all the big protests are in Tel Aviv. Like I think that in Beersheba there was a protest of about. Well, they wrote. I saw on the internet that they said that in Beersheba there was a protest of 2,000 people. I don't know. Was there something in Nahariya, Jonathan?
No, there are scattered throughout the north. Of course, most of the north is Sfaradi, because that's where the Ashkenazim threw the North African refugees when they started pouring in. But there are a surprising number of, shall we say, left-wing communities. Some of the more well-to-do communities, like Kfar Varadim, they're very strongly left. I've just finished treating somebody who comes from a Hashomer Hatzair kibbutz, which is 5 minutes away from Nahariya. And so, I was very careful not to say anything about anything because you just get into an argument. And
if he comes to the office,
he would get a heart attack.
Give him a shot first, then he can say anything.
I didn't understand that.
I said, you're the doctor. So when he came to the office, you give him a shot. Don't they have all those things, special things, like give him a shot, and now he changed him to another person? Medical shot. Like anxiety.
I said to somebody that
it's not legal?
At one time, certainly in America, religion was religion and politics was politics. But I think now for the left, they've abandoned religion and politics has become the religion. So, one of the problems they have, they get so crazy about a conservative judge getting on the Supreme Court. I said it's as if they're part of a religious sect and the wrong bishop was, elected to the College of Cardinals. Or, Trump is like getting the wrong Pope. They don't like the Pope, and it's upsetting them deeply. It's the same thing. The left,
Same
they get
thing.
hysterical because that's their whole life revolves around politics. And to have,
Yes.
to not have control and absolute control of the government through the Supreme Court is they get paranoid. It's
I
because the shoe could be on the other foot.
They're deathly
Suppose it's
afraid, by the way,
conservative
they're
court.
deathly afraid that Israel becomes a theocracy. This is a very important thing because they push this narrative that within a few months after the legislation is passed and everything is in place, the new laws are in place and the changes, and the Supreme Court has to now bow to the new fundamental laws about what it can and cannot do. Then they are afraid that this right-wing government will turn Israel into a theocracy, and that women will have to start,
wearing
um,
burqas.
yes, Jewish burqas.
Well, it's
And,
paranoia. They don't understand,
they don't
politics
understand
is
anything.
politics. You have to make compromises and you have to, negotiate. It's, they're the
I
irony is they're the ones who usually want, absolute totalitarian control and to be able to force their views on everybody. And when
I
suddenly somebody else might force views on them, they all get hysterical because no,
I
we're the ones who have to dictate to everybody how to think and what to do.
Right.
And,
I still, I
who
was
can
still,
get married.
I was still thinking back to what Jonathan mentioned about the patient that came to me, and I was thinking, Jonathan is a doctor. I always envision, when I see the movie, when they do it, the surgeons make operations, the doctors, and when they all finished, they cut a person, do the surgery, then usually in the movies they show the guy takes his gloves off and tells the nurse, "Okay, sew them up now," and they go home. Surgeon's done. So I would imagine the guys on the operating table, the left guy that came to see Jonathan. So he's doing all this surgery, and at the very end, and the guy tells him how horrible, the right is and all this. And Jonathan just listening. He doesn't have time to respond because he's doing the surgery. He's taking care of his health. And then he finishes the surgery, and as he walks out of the room, he tells the nurse, "Okay, sew him up now." Never mind.
Oh, you know what?
Maybe it's a
What
bad
David
joke. I
said
have to
about
take it back. Just a joke.
what David said about Tel Aviv not having aware of the rest of the country. I wanted to show you a famous New Yorker cartoon, how New Yorkers look the rest of the country. Do I have
Oh,
can I share the screen?
Yeah.
Let me share the screen. I'll just take 10 seconds to show it to you.
No problem. Multiple participants can see. Okay, you should be able to do now.
Okay, so this was a New Yorker
it's an
showing how New
old
Yorkers look
one.
at the rest of the world,
Wow.
And when you said how Tel Aviv looks at the rest of Israel, it's like here's New York and there's Jersey, Nebraska, California, Pacific, Japan. It's like it's like they're all equal size in New Yorkers' mind. Actually New York's a little bigger. Just a few avenues bigger than the rest of the country. But Tel Aviv, I'll stop there. But
Okay.
Tel Aviv probably thinks of the rest of Israel the same way. There's Tel Aviv and there's a little bit there, a little thing there, and it's not really important, but
I am thinking I am thinking about this one, guys. When I think about the world, I think about, let's see, this world. How do you like that? Solomon's Temple.
what about
Yeah,
it?
it's one of my favorite places.
Solomon's Temple. I'm gonna share it. Okay.
I saw this. Someone retweeted something very funny a couple of days ago. They took a picture of the screen from a Facebook post, and so this guy there who's on the left, he posted, if to all my friends who live around who live in outside of Israel, if you have any good advice to give to someone who wants to run away from Israel now. Okay, so he actually has a friend in New Zealand, and New Zealand has become a topic here in Israel because New Zealand is a small place and it's very green and free and it's democratic and it's perfect and there's no crime and
That's because
everybody
the
loves each
sheep don't
other.
vote. Come on, there's more sheep than people.
Okay, yeah. That- And so
Sheep don't vote.
so
That's interesting.
an Israeli who lives in New Zealand wrote back and said, well, listen, New Zealand is very much like Israel. We don't have a constitution. There's no constitution in New Zealand. There's 120 members of the parliament, like in Israel, and the Supreme Court cannot at all cancel any laws made by the parliament. And New Zealand, and they have a law which they set up during the pandemic that enables cops to basically get into your house without a warrant. So, and then he says, "Do you think you can take that?" You know, people are
and they
so
also and they also
brainwashed,
and they
so
also say
brainwashed. It's unbelievable.
and also before the concert starts, I know I've been to New Zealand visiting. They also say, "Long live the Queen."
Yeah, they're still
Probably
part of the British Empire.
Yeah. So how would the left take that? I guess "Long live the Queen" is not as bad as "Long live the King." So I think it's okay.
the problem is not the reform. That's not the problem. The problem is much deeper. It's a deeper social problem that has to do with how the Israeli society was established and designed throughout the history of the state of Israel. I think, and I agree with others that think like that, than articles that I've read. This is basically a revenge. Um, this is a revenge by those who traditionally felt that they were marginalized, mostly, like Jonathan said, Sfaradim. People came here from Morocco, Tunisia, Iraq, Egypt, Algeria, Libya, all the Muslim countries,
Penniless.
and what?
Penniless.
Yeah.
Penniless, and they actually had to sign a paper that says that they agree that when they come to Israel, they will be sent. There's a list of cities, towns, ayarot pituach, development towns. That's what it was called in those days. Basically, places like Ofakim, Dimona, Sderot.
Kiryat Malachi, Ma'alot.
Exactly. To the periphery of Israel, they agree to
Beersheba
go
too, to
there.
some extent, right?
What?
Beersheba also, no?
No, Beersheba, no.
No.
It was already
No.
a city.
It was
In
already a big
biblical
city, yeah.
times.
Sorry, yeah.
And
To develop the
they agree
country.
to go to these towns, and they agree to be how should I put it? They agree to work in the hardest, things that Israel needed in those days. Israel needed people to, build roads and infrastructure and construction of buildings. It was a time where Jews still worked in construction actually. And so they really like they made a plan, the like the Ashkenazim and the all of that, they will be the managers and the Sfaradim will be the workers. And this is now gone, and after Aaron Barak's constitutional revolution, um, and because the Sfaradim traditionally were to the right, they were not to the left. A minority of Sfaradim were actually to the left, and in the 1970s they created a movement, the Black Panthers of Israel, right? The Panterim HaShochorim, and they were actually motivated. They were socialists, and they were guided by people from the Shomer HaTzair and other organizations of the left, who tried to bring some of the Sfaradim into the Israeli left. but that was a minority. The majority of these peoples always supported the Likud. It was called the Cherut Party back then, and they supported Begin. And of course, in 1977, they all basically voted for Begin, and Begin won. And that was. And since then, like I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, the left that feels that they own the country because they created the country, which is true. It's true. Israel was created by the socialist movement of Mapai, and David Ben Gurion was the head of Mapai, the Workers' Party of Israel, and but they feel that the country was taken away from them, and what they cannot understand and what they cannot accept, they can understand that, but they don't accept it, that a population changes, a society changes. It doesn't stay. It doesn't. People are not stones. People are not rocks. You don't stay this way forever. Society changes. New people are born. They have different opinions. The situation changes. The situation around, the environment changes. There's more technology. There's more this. There's more that. And finally, usually it's the second and third generation of immigrants. It's the same thing in Europe, by the way. The second and third generation of Muslim immigrants are the ones who are making the problems for the European countries. And so the second and third generation of Sfaradim here in Israel are now basically are the backbone of this sort of revenge for what was done to their parents in the 50s and 60s, when they were sent to the small towns and were forced to do hard labor, and they just cannot accept it anymore. They feel that their ownership of the country and their management, they're basically, how should I say it, their mastership, right? They used to be the masters, and now this status of being masters is taken away from them, and they just cannot accept it.
But I think, David, this is very interesting. I really think it will be interesting to your friend who in America to listen. Very good input. But I remember, David, you said the problem even further than that. And like you put it, we're in interesting times that people have to decide. In Israel, are you a Jew or are you Israeli? And that concept incorporates a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of today's issues and concern.
It's part of the thing. It's part of the thing. There's many, sometimes people forget, but there's many people on the right who are chilonim or like light, masorti light, right? So they do the kiddush on Shabbat with the family and everything, and they bless on the geffen and on the bread. But in the morning they take a car and they drive to the beach. So they have Judaism in their lives as a way of, this is, we Jews, we're Jews, we do this on a Friday night. We remember it's the Shabbat, but it's like it's a 21st century Shabbat.
Yeah.
And there's many Jews like that. But most of my family is like that.
I was wondering, David, and then Jonathan, maybe I occasionally, as you know, and Reuven always, as we bike together, he always tells me to knock it off and not to be too radical. And I'm learning lessons from him and try to be less radical. But I couldn't help it a little bit. And maybe, Jonathan, there was one guy, he left our group recently, and I think I was the cause of that, because we had some discussion and I got carried away, unfortunately. And neither Jonathan nor Reuven, they sent me a note to tell me privately, shut up, left, you're going over the boundaries. And there was discussion, and one guy from Nairi, a very nice guy, he went to our club a couple of times, and we noticed in our club, Perplexed, that the person survives the first couple of months and understands that any discussion is a respectful discussion. We respect your opinion. Nobody wants to kill you, although sometimes occasionally we might do something, like our conversation today may be considered more to the right, more radical than to the left. So I said something like, King David, really, when they talk about democracy, and I said something to the effect, well, but what does Torah say about King David? Was he like a chief social worker? I mean, he wasn't a member of like a social worker. And what do you say about Torah saying there was a king? Is that like archaic? It should have been, if we had democracy instead of the kingdom, maybe it would have been better off. So I would wonder, because basically what people are essentially believe in Torah, and the people who don't believe in Torah, there's no debate. If I say I am the ultimate authority, I don't care for the Torah. And I think that everyone must be respected, which is the democratic way to live. What can he say to them? I would say, I don't believe in democracy. I believe in theocracy, but in a nice theocracy. I think kings should be benevolent. I think kings should be able to defend us. The king who should be decisive. He should build roads and parks and bridges, everything, but must be the king and the officers of the king and departments of the kingdom, not a democratic. This is nice state. If somebody doesn't believe in it, just the world. You want to have a king? So in other words, you have two options left. You either have democracy or fascism. Is that what you're for? I'm not for democracy. I'm not for the fascism, but I am for theocracy. And after I did that, the guy says, "Okay, this forum is not for me. I'm leaving," and he left the forum after what just said what I said.
This is one of the reasons that, when I think straight, sometimes I get sometimes I get so angry listening and reading all these leftist lunacies that I say, I wish I could make you a theocracy and crush you all, right? But when you think straight, when you're relaxed, you realize Israel cannot be a theocracy now. And I think that if it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, but especially if you are religious and the state of Israel is important to you, you should actually now, what's going to happen in the future, we hope that, we can build the temple and the temple will be the new government for the people of Israel. But now it cannot happen. There's too much division. There's lots of people who don't want this, and we don't want them to leave.
Yeah.
We don't want them to leave. We need everybody here. And so right now, we need the democracy more than anything. And it cannot be Medinat Halacha, state of halacha, right now. It's technically impossible. Okay, the situation is that it's technically impossible.
Good
But also Israel. Also, I'll just say just one more thing. Israel is also is very interesting to see the limits of democracy or the borders of democracy. Speaking of borders, what happens when you have too many factions? Maybe democracy is okay for when you have 2 or 3 parties. But once you have 45 parties running for the Knesset or for the parliament, maybe that's too much for a democracy because it says something about the society.
So the U.S. is not a democracy. The U.S. is a republic, and the U.S. has proportional representation, and they have enough troubles with that. Everybody has always agreed that democracy is horrible, but it's the best we've got. And as you say, it requires people to talk with each other.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
that the
Point.
moment
I
that
think it's really
I would
important.
like to know, by the way, what would be the
Guys, we
difference
have 1
between
minute
the
left.
Republican
and-
All right,
democracy.
let me just say this one thing.
Go
Okay,
ahead,
Marshall
Rudy.
McLuhan, explain that people think the purpose of a media is to give different opinions. He said, no, the actual purpose of the media is to keep everybody on the same page and on the same playing field. He said, because in a democracy, if people get too far apart, you can't make a democracy. People won't talk to each other. They have two differing points of view. So actually the media needs to keep everybody in a closed and restricted space. A little to one side, a little to one side, but you're still on the playing field. Once it gets so wide apart, it's very hard to maintain because people don't have the same moral compass and they have trouble communicating. That's the point. If there's too many parties, maybe it's hard to have democracy.
Good point, guys. 15 seconds. Jonathan, I'll talk to you in a little bit about the movie, but next Tuesday at 8 o'clock, add this Zoom and the password. In the meantime, guys, democracy, el good. Shavuot tov. Love you.